Well, there have been extraordinary scenes in Berlin tonight as thousands of people gathered to hear Barack Obama deliver key foreign policy speech on his current European tour. Democratic presidential hopeful laid out his vision for America's place in a new world order, saying he was speaking as a proud citizen of the world, of the world, of the world.
It is a big idea. It is a big idea. A new world order.
Hello friends, I am Anti-Terrorist. Thank you for your emails and messages of support and for staying part of the conversation. I'm sure many of you are familiar with George Orwell's book, 1984, in which he warned that people were in danger of losing their freedom of mind without being aware of it happening because of psychological, emotional, and intellectual manipulation, mind control. Well, the world of 1984 arrived unnoticed in the West because people were conditioned not to notice it. Many people don't think about the things that affect them subconsciously because, generally speaking, they don't know what to look for until someone comes along and starts pointing things out. Only then can they see how unseen forces influence us all without our conscious awareness. In fact, the ultimate control is controlling people without their conscious awareness of it. Now, the majority of households in the West own at least one television, and we spend almost half our lives watching one. The average Brit and American soaks up nearly 5 hours of TV a day. And for most people, television is not only considered a member of the family, it's one of the most important members. It runs the household, and it's invariably a main feature in the room with all chairs pointed in its general direction. And it's often used as a babysitter and as the main source of information. In effect, television has come to represent a religious altar before which the nation worships, an oracle to whom they bring tribute. We've come to associate the television with relaxation. Very few of us read and relax these days, or have a discussion, or just sit and be, and allow the mind to unwind under its own steam. We just can't do it. We can't just sit still and let the day's thoughts pass by. We have to have the external stimulus. Otherwise we don't feel whole and complete. There has to be some noise in the background. We've been programmed to receive. Television is the perfect means and mechanism for the transmission of propaganda, because people consider it a break from the grind of daily life. And every day, sit down, tune in, and switch off. All we know is that we feel relaxed, and the day's worries fade away as we watch our favorite evening programs. Isn't that right? Now, how often have you heard someone say, I just want to watch a movie and give my brain a rest? Now, how is it that we often find ourselves slack-jawed and glued to the television set, even when we've no idea what's on the screen and have no interest in it? And despite the fact there may be other people in the room, we find ourselves being drawn to the glowing box in the corner. No matter what you're watching, the image on the TV screen seems to be static and stationary, but it's not. It's actually flickering. You may have noticed this effect in old films where they have a TV set on in the background, and there'll be a black bar rolling up and down the TV screen. It's because the film camera hasn't compensated for the flicker rate of the television. We don't see it consciously, but this effect of the repeating visual pattern of the flicker brings about the trance state. The longer a person watches TV, the more easily the brain slips into alpha frequency, a slow, steady brainwave pattern in which the mind is in its most receptive mode. It's a natural state. We go in and out of it during the day. And it's the dreamlike state we experience just before we drift off to sleep at night, or just before we wake in the morning. There's minimal conscious mental activity going on. The subconscious is wide open for programming at that point. The TV is literally plugging into the human nervous system through the ocular nerve. Now, it is significant that the TV has the ability to do this. The first order of business for any advertiser or propagandist is to create the circumstances that will induce the state of mind that is favorable to the reception of their message. The conscious capacity for analytical and critical thinking is put on pause, and images and suggestions can be embedded directly into the mind, while your resistance is at an all-time low without losing complete consciousness. You can be told what to think by scripted newsreaders, told what to buy, what to wear, where to go, and kept otherwise distracted by sport, meaningless celebrity gossip, and a barrage of sex and entertainment. Even more frequently punctuated these days by messages of fear and warnings of looming terror. Now, there's a reason why television networks, the music industry, and various other media companies have programming departments. The programming with which we're constantly assaulted throughout our lives conditions us. It programs us to a particular worldview, a corporate worldview. And so we find ourselves on a hamster wheel, whereby we endure day after day of our repetitive jobs and then return to our television for new programming. Of course, after making a pittance, we need to know how to spend our money. So we're flashed images of cars and toys and all sorts of things that we're told we need. When we're in a fully switched on, awakened state and we're presented with pieces of information, we have the opportunity to make a conscious choice if we're going to accept whether or not that piece of information is true. If the analytical mind is bypassed by putting the viewer into a trance state, then the programmer can put a tag, a code, or a subheading into the file that can be activated later on, by a jingle or a logo, for instance. At some point in our lives, we've all found ourselves humming a catchy jingle from some commercial or other, have we not? You know the ones you can't get out of your head?
I want my baby back, baby back, baby back. I want my baby back, baby back, baby back. I want my baby back, baby back, baby back. I want my baby back, baby back, baby back. I want my baby back, baby back, baby back. I want my baby back, baby back, baby back. I want my baby back, baby back.
Ribs. Ribs.
And who doesn't just love it when a commercial introduces a new catchphrase that goes viral?
What's up? 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 What's
How often have you bought something and then wondered what on earth possessed you afterwards? It's affectionately known as an impulse buy. I think we've all had that kind of experience. It's a common everyday illustration of being compelled to make a purchase based on a conditioned response that's been programmed into us, to have a preference for a particular product. That's the whole point of programming. Whether it's by an advertiser or a propagandist, there's really no difference between the two. One sells products and the other sells ideas. Ideas about globalization or the New World Order or global warming or the need for a new means of dealing with society's economic ills. The whole point is to install in all of us a conditioned response where we'll jump when they say without thinking and with a preference for a particular idea or product. Whether or not it's coming from public broadcast channels or commercial entities, it's all programming. Even this broadcast is programming. The pertinent question is, has the media been created to educate and empower, or deceive and control? Ultimately, the person who is broadcasting determines the content and its context. In other words, consider the source. You may have noticed that the rate at which transitions or cuts happening in television, films and adverts is speeding up. The pace is getting more and more frenetic, a trend that has its roots in the MTV music video genre. A slow, sustained message gives the viewer a chance to think and use discretion, whereas a fast-paced presentation, with multiple cuts, edits, and flashing symbols, doesn't allow time for anything other than absorption. Quick cuts, going from one shot to another, causes a corresponding chemical reaction in the brain, which inevitably releases endorphins, having a drug-like effect on the viewer. A child sits in front of the TV and watches the quick cutting and fast-paced cartoons, music, videos, or children's programming, and can sit still due to the induced trance-like state and the consequent endorphin rush from the chemical reactions in the brain. But when the TV is off, or they're away from the set, many children are fidgety and restless, and they can't focus because they're searching for the same kind of drug effect they get when they're sitting in front of it. TV programming disturbs a child's brain chemistry to such a degree that it can cause addictive patterns of behavior. Attention deficit disorder was unheard of prior to television. You know, in any totalitarian movement, regardless of where it occurs, the programming is directed at the children, because they are the future. Capture the minds of the children and you've captured the nation. That's why mass media is so important, why entertainment is so very important. It's creating a unified mindset amongst the entire population. Whoever controls the programming controls your programming. And if you have children who watch TV, whoever controls the TV has at least some control over what they think, what they want, what they like and dislike, and how they'll grow up to view the world. Using the TV as a babysitter and giving malevolent strangers the power to shape your child's mind is an irresponsible, lazy and obtuse way to raise a child. If the cap fits, wear it.